This is an analysis from Alpha Business Media. In Nepal, there's a quiet crisis happening inside some of the biggest companies. Major technology projects are failing at an astonishing rate, costing businesses millions. I'm talking about enterprise resource planning systems, ERPs. And the reason they're failing? Well, it has almost nothing to do with the technology itself.
So let's just start with the headline number, 70%. That, according to industry insiders, is the approximate failure rate for these big ERP projects in Nepal. Now, that's not just a statistic. It represents massive financial losses, and more importantly, it represents shattered promises of a modern digital future.
So that begs the question, right? We're talking about world-class software from giants like SAP and Oracle, software that powers the biggest, most efficient companies on the planet. Why on earth are these multi-core investments falling flat so consistently in Nepal? Okay, let's dive into this 70% problem. The issue isn't a technical one. It's not about bad servers or buggy code. The real problem, as we're about to see, is a deep, profound cultural mismatch that this software brings to light in the most unforgiving way. And this, right here, is the heart of it. The software works exactly as it's designed to. The problem is that it demands a level of transparency and strict process that goes completely against the grain of how many businesses in the region have traditionally operated. To really get this conflict, you have to look under the hood of an ERP system. There's a core principle, you could almost call it a ghost in the machine, that's causing all of this trouble. And here it is, the single source of truth. The idea is simple. Every sale, every purchase order, every bit of inventory, it all goes into one unified, auditable system. For any modern company, this is just the bedrock of efficiency. But for many traditional businesses, this simple principle is an existential threat. And this is why it's a threat. See, the ERP demands one book of truth. But for generations, many businesses have thrived by operating with two very different books. You've got the pocketbook, the official, sanitized version for the tax authorities and the banks. And then you have the Kacha book. That's where reality lives, the informal credit, the handshake deals, the real cash flow. The thing is, an ERP simply can't process the nuance of that Kacha book. So what happens? People either feed it the clean Pucka data, which makes the multi-core system basically useless, or they just make things up. It's the ultimate garbage in, garbage out scenario. But this isn't just a data problem. It's a people problem. It's about who controls that data. Now, while this dual book issue often starts right at the top, the active resistance to the new system usually comes from the middle ranks. And to understand why, you have to grasp this concept, information asymmetry. It simply means that in many companies, a manager's real power doesn't come from their title. It comes from the critical information that only they control. Just picture a traditional head of procurement. His value, his power, comes from his personal network of suppliers. It comes from his special knowledge of who gives the best unofficial terms. The same goes for a sales manager, whose influence is built on his personal relationships with clients and his power to offer discretionary deals. This is their entire power base. And here's the killer. An ERP system is specifically designed to eliminate that power base. It standardizes everything. It makes supplier performance and pricing visible to the whole company. It enforces uniform rules for everyone. It takes that special knowledge and makes it common knowledge, effectively rendering that manager's old source of power completely obsolete. So when you see this resistance, you have to understand it's not some irrational fear of computers. It's a perfectly rational, calculated act of professional self-preservation. They aren't fighting the software. They're fighting the transparency that threatens their very influence and value to the company. And this points to an even deeper issue. You know, these problems with data and with people, they're really just symptoms of a powerful economic idea called path dependency. The basic concept is that the decisions of the past create the constraints of today. The DNA of the Nepali private sector was forged in a completely different era, an era with very different roles, and that old DNA is now clashing with the modern world. Think about it. The old trading house DNA valued things like flexibility, personal negotiation, and even a certain amount of opacity. These were survival traits. But an ERP requires a digital-first DNA that's built on the exact opposite: rigid processes, total standardization, and absolute transparency. The two are simply incompatible. So what you have isn't just a software project. It's a head-on collision between two opposing business philosophies. It's like trying to transplant the operational brain of a hyper-efficient German manufacturing giant into the body of a traditional Nepali trading house. And this brings us to the fundamental, hard truth about what these systems actually do. This might be the single most important thing to understand. So many leaders buy an ERP thinking it's a hammer, a tool to force their messy company into a neat, orderly shape. It's not. It's a mirror. It doesn't fix your problems. It just gives you a crystal clear and often brutal reflection of every single dysfunction you already have.
And when leadership is forced to look into that mirror, there are really only two ways forward. Path one is the status quo. You delegate the project to the IT department, you get frustrated when it reveals all these cultural problems, and inevitably, you let it quietly fail. Path two is real transformation. Leadership has to personally own the project, not as a tech upgrade, but as a fundamental evolution of the entire business.
So, in the end, this is the crossroads. Most companies will probably continue down the first path, blaming the software, blaming the consultants, but a new generation of leaders will see that reflection in the mirror and understand that the real change has to start with them. The question they need to ask isn't, which software should we buy? It's, are we, as leaders, willing to fundamentally change the company that this software is about to reveal? Because the true cost of failure isn't the wasted software license, it's the steep price of clinging to an outdated business model while the rest of the world mercilessly moves on.